bird leaps on the back of the wind and floats downstream to the current ends and dips his wing in the orange sun rays and dares to claim the sky. But a bird that stalks down his narrow cage can seldom see through his bars of rage. His wings are clipped and his feet are tied, so he opens his throat to sing. For the caged bird sings with a fearful trill of things unknown but longed for still. His tune is heard on the distant hill, for the caged bird sings of freedom. A free bird thinks of another breeze, the trade wind soft through the sighing trees, and the fat worm waiting on a dawn-bright lawn, and he names the sky his own. But a caged bird stands on the grave of dreams. His shadow shouts a nightmare scream, because his wings are clipped and his feet are tied, so he opens his throat to sing. For the caged bird sings with a fearful trill of things unknown but longed for still. His tune is heard on the distant hill, for the caged bird sings of freedom. That poem was written by Dr. Maya Angelou in her response to the civil rights movement. My name is Candace Thompson, and I'm a community change agent in Southeast Dallas in an area now known as Jubilee Park. I happened upon this vocation because I had grown sick and tired of being sick and tired of being sick and tired of being reactive and applying Band-Aids to the issues that were facing our communities. So one Sunday, a pastor of mine had introduced the term Ubuntu, which loosely translates to mean I am because we are. I am because we are reaffirmed my belief that everything that we do or do not do has an impact on not just our immediate world, but on the world abroad. And with that, I struck out wanting to try to make things right in my own way. And like the caged bird, I too have stood on the grave of my own dreams. And some of the people that I work with at Jubilee Park have as well. And I'll share a little bit of my story and theirs. So, I don't quite understand it, but as a young child, I had the belief that I only had 4 people who loved me unconditionally. That was my mother, Sheila Young, my brother, David O'Neill Brown Jr., my grandfather, Mr. Freddie Douglass Washington, and my grandmother, Miss Annie Mae Washington. Now, don't get me wrong, it wasn't that I didn't have other people who loved me unconditionally. I just didn't give these 4 a choice. They were my pillars. So like many, my early ages were framed by my immediate family, but then also by my summer readings that we had to endure. So while other kids were off in the summers enjoying themselves, riding their bicycles, having wonderful adventures, taking family vacations, my dad would take my brother and I to Black Images bookstore in Woodwood Village of South Oak Cliff, because every Friday we had a book report that would be due. And as a youth, I didn't understand what he was trying to do and why we had to do this every single week. But now, and as an adult, I'm forever grateful for those opportunities, because there at Black Images bookstore, I learned about poets, authors, musicians, and change agents who looked just like me. These would be people that I would have never learned about in my public school education settings. However, I must share with you that the comfort and the shelter of my edge living was threatened when within 10 years, 3 of my 4 pillars passed on. First was the passing of my grandmother, February 2002. She passed just 3 months before my bachelor's education, before I completed it. She was one of the most sweetest, kindest, most beautiful souls in this world, beautiful and reserved. I still remember her voice calling me sweetie and her soft hands. And then there was a call that I received from my Aunt Roberta in February of 2010. She says, Candace, I think you might want to come back home because Daddy's health is on the decline. Well, of course I'm coming back home. My grandfather served a dual role for me. Not only was he my pawpaw, but he was also my dad in many occasions. So I made that transition back home, and I got back by April. However, the greatest shock and emotional hijacking of my life took place on Father's Day, June 20th, 2010. My brother David, whom I affectionately call DJ, he suffered from bipolar disorder, and he could not wake from the nightmare that he was experiencing. And he shot and killed 2 innocent people, and then he was later shot and killed by the Lancaster Police Department. That was my edge living experience. And then in February of 2012, 10 years to the month of when my grandmother had passed, my grandfather passed. What can I say about this great man? His birthday was on Valentine's Day. He ate up all the sweets in the house. And so he was my hot mess and my sweetheart. So I ask you, what edges are you facing today? Are you the undocumented immigrant mother with 3 children, when you send them off to school, hoping that they're happy, healthy, and that they're learning? In the meantime, you're at home trying to figure out how are you going to make ends meet because your husband has recently been deported? That's edge living. Or are you that couple that's been married for 60 plus years, that's the only person you've ever known? You're still so in love. You hold hands when you're in public. You hold hands when you're at home sitting on the couch watching television. But how are you supposed to make it when the person that you have seen as your source of strength and honor and all that is courageous in this world being siphoned from you because of aging and cancer? That's edge living. Or are you that college student trying to make ends meet, trying to figure out, am I going to take this money and apply it to this meal plan, or am I going to take this money and apply it to these books that I need to have for class? That's edge living. Or are you that individual who suffers with mental illness and you don't want other people to know? So you self-medicate so you don't have to feel not feeling. That's edge living. Or are you that one person who can't read and write in your own language? So you are dependent on a person that you trust and believe at your local community center to help you decipher your life decisions. That's edge living. So we all have edge living experiences, but life is subject to change and ever shifting. I don't know if many of you remember that show back in the 90s, late 90s, early 2000s on MTV. It was Real World. And it says, you think you know, but you have no idea. So my friends, oftentimes we think we know, but we have no idea. So don't assume that just because you have heard a part of a person's story, that you know them entirely. I am because we are does not mean that because you have shared your story with me, that it is now mine to claim. It means that I had an opportunity to hear you and to see you. And to hear and to see another person is a great honor and a privilege, not to be taken for granted. But as change agents, we have a responsibility to scoot over and to create those spaces and those platforms for our brothers and sisters who have been left out from the decision-making tables, whether that was intentionally or unintentionally. Their voices need to be heard. After all, who wants their life decisions to be built up on a broken system and have a lifetime of cultural oppression? No one. I didn't think so. In this work, we are meant to lift one another up because no one stands on the edge alone. However, it is necessary to have some things that are going to continue to give you life outside of the work that you do and you see on each and every day. And for me, there have been several things that have helped me along my life's path that prevent me from falling over the edge. One is my faith, and to stay centered for me, and that is God. And so if you have a higher power, I suggest you tap into that. Two has been a great support system And that's a family, family of choice, friends, mentors, and if need be, get you a counselor or a therapist that can help you with these things. Because I know that I needed it after the passing of my brother. And then 3 is to cast a vision for yourself, knowing that everything is subject to change and knowing that God is not through with me yet in this place, in this time. I would like to leave you with a poem that I wrote back in 2008, not knowing that I felt like it would be appropriate for such a time as this. Walking on the edge, considering. I would, I could, I should just take that one more step, perhaps leaping into the unknown, with arms wide open and wondering, the freedom to be free. Should I fall? Surely not, because the sea within is calm. And if I know that my God, if should a tide arise, I know that my God will abide, because I am never alone. Walking on the edge is safe and comfortable. I will jump. So I ask you, what edge are you facing on this day? Thank you.